Hi, it's Jordan Teen 1, and today I'm going to show you how to make this super adorable little Dachshund mural. So you can see I have two different versions. This one here, I just have a little naked plain one, and then the one at the top, I have him as a little hot dog. And you may notice there is just a little bit of difference between the two, because this is the first one I had done, and I decided on the second one I was going to add an additional row on either end. The completed measurements are about 5 inches long and 2.5 inches wide. And also I'd like to note that if my voice sounds a little bit odd, it's because I've been sick for the past week. So I'm just trying to really get through this tutorial with a minimum amount of clearing my throat and coughing. To make your mural, you're going to need a Rainbow Loom or any loom that has movable bar pins. You'll need a hook of some sort, so I have the Rainbow Loom metal hook. And then for your band count, you're going to need 500 color bands and then 46 clear, or if you didn't have clear, you could use your background color. So let me just break it down by each color. I have 334 of the blue, 92 caramel, 40 of the beige, and this came out of the Rainbow Loom camouflage pack. I have 14 brown, and the darker the better. I have 16 red and 4 black. And then if you did not want to make a hot dog, you wanted to make a plain dachshund, you would just replace these beige and the red with the main dachshund color, so the caramel. So in that instance, you would need 148 of your dog color. And then, as I said earlier, 46 of the clear, or whatever bands you're using to tie the rows together. To set up your Rainbow Loom, you want to have the 2 blue base plates, the small ones, on the very ends, and you're going to leave the entire center empty. And then for that middle row of pins, you're going to remove those, and the 2 rows on the ends you want to have spaced evenly. I'm going to be working with my loom in this direction, horizontally, and I'm going to be having the arrows facing towards the right. So that's where the opened ends of the pins are. And above my loom, I'm going to add a grid pattern that we're going to be following along with. We're going to begin by making the border. So I have 9 sets of my background color and then 1 more that's going to be tripled. So we're going to lay the bands from left to right. So I'm always taking 2 at a time. And I'm starting on the second pin in from the left side of the loom. So I'm just going to lay these going down. And you want to try and get them as straight as possible, because the more even the bands are, the more untwisted they are, the nicer that your end result is going to be. And then on this last pin here, it's the 3rd pin in from the right. I'm going to take my last single band here and I'm going to triple this. So I'm just going to place it on the pin, twist, put it back on, twist, and put it back on. And then it's just a matter of looping. So you're going down through the tripled band, push back on your hook, and you might have to use your thumb and sort of hold that tripled band on, make sure it doesn't pop off. And then we're just going to loop this row all the way back to the start. Just make sure as you're doing that you're getting both of those loops to go on. In the second row, you have your same background color. You're going to use 10 sets. We're going to use 10 sets of bands every time. And you want to make sure that the bands on your loom are pushed all the way down to the bottom of the pins. And then we're just going to lay these straight across. So it's really quite an easy concept to do. It's a little bit time consuming, but I think the end result is definitely worth it. And then what you're going to do is just take the bands that are on the pins here and just slide them up over the top. And we're going to place them right in the center. So you're just going to slide them over so they're right in the very middle. The next thing we need to do is to put our tie bands on, and these are just going to tie the rows together. So we're going to do this in between every one of our rows from now on. And I'm going to be using clear bands. I'm going to be using 2 for each row. If you wanted to, you could use whatever your background color is. I do recommend the clear, but if you don't happen to have those, you can use your background color. So again, you're always going to be pushing your work down to the bottom before you move on. Just frees up the room on the pins for you. Now we have 10 pins that we're working with, but we do need to overlap the tie bands on one of the pins in the middle. So one of the tie bands is going to have to span over 5 pins, and then the other one's going to have to span over 6 pins. And it is a little bit tight. In row 3, we're going to start to pick up a little bit of the dog, so just the very tip of his tail is going to go in that second spot. So again, it's just a matter of stretching these straight across. As I said, it's really quite easy to do. If you've made any of my Alpha Loom bracelets, it's basically the same concept, it's just on a little bit larger scale. And then what you need to do is to get your clear bands and get them into the center. So whatever one you put on last is going to be on top. So you have to do that one first, and then the other. And then it's just a matter of looping the bottom 2 bands. So you're just getting those bottom 2 and moving them into the center. And then the same thing for the other side. The only thing I will say is when you do move these over the top, a lot of times the side that you pulled off first is going to be pulled that way. So what I like to do is, after I take these off, I just make sure that they look like they're evenly pulled on the pin. So for example, I just take my hook and just tug this back over a little bit so that they are just evenly spaced. So same thing for these here. And again. And you may notice where the 2 bands, the 2 clear bands meet. So you can see how they're pulling this in opposite directions. But don't worry about that, because once this starts to grow down and the tension starts to ease up on it, it is going to naturally go together nice and smooth. Now I want to do my clear bands, so I'm going to push all of this down. And what I like to do is I like to change up how many pins that they're going across. So the last time I did 5 on the left and 6 on the right. So this time I'm going to do 6 on the left and then 5 on the right. In row 4 we have just the dog color for the tail is just moving down to that 3rd spot. And then the rest is your background color. And then again, your clear bands come off. And then the bottom. Make sure you get both of the loops. And then again, when you take off this second side, you just need to make sure that your bands are pretty evenly spaced and not pulling towards that one side. And you want to keep making sure too that this is pretty much in the center of the loom. And now the clear bands, after I push this down. So this time I'm going to do 5 on the left, and I'll do 6 on the right. And push that down as well. Row 5 is still mainly the background color, just one part of the tail that moves down to the 4th spot. And again, the clear. And then those bottoms. I'm actually used to using the Alpha Loom for doing this type of thing, which has the alpha comb where you just grab all the bands at once to pull them over the top. So I kind of miss that when I'm doing it on the regular loom. And I did come up with a version of the Dachshund on the Alpha Loom. The thing about that is you're restricted to 7 sets of pins. So that's why I'm doing this one on the big one. I like it better when I had a little bit more room to work with to make that design. So again, whoops, I just made this come off. Let me fix that. What I'm trying to do is just to even out the spacing here. And let me just push this all down. So I have my tie bands. Row 6 is going to be a repeat of row 5, so everything is staying in that same position. So the inspiration for my mural, and also for my Lumagurumi Dachshund, is my little doggy nephew whose name is Milo. So he's actually a black and brown Dachshund, but it was a little bit tough to try and do the black and brown for the mural. I could have done it for the body, but for the face you wouldn't get any of the facial features. So here's a picture of what he looks like. This is him dressed up last year in his little police dog Halloween costume. I wanted to get him in a hot dog costume, but I didn't have any pictures of that. So I think he looks super adorable. So hopefully everybody is getting the hang of this, or how it's made. In row 7, we're starting the pattern for the dog's leg, and also here his little hot dog. Now, if you're doing the pattern that is just your plain dog, any place that has the hot dog color bands, either the bun color or the actual red color for the hot dog, you're going to just keep that the same with your dog color. I also have another doggy niece whose name is Sadie, and I don't happen to have any pictures of her in a costume, but I will share her picture just so that she isn't neglected. So I'm not really sure what kind of dog she is. I think she's some kind of a mix with a Feist, which I have actually never heard of before my brother got this dog. They had rescued her. So she's really just the sweetest little dog. She has such a kind and gentle disposition. And she's really wonderful with my niece Olivia, who's only 2, who's really just obsessed with dogs. So she just loves her dogs so much. So now I have my clear. In row 8, we're going to pick up the red color. That's going to be for the actual hot dog. So since I feel like there's not a whole lot of explanation I need to do for the remainder of the tutorial, and I feel like it could get kind of boring, I decided that I was going to include some other cute dog pictures and pictures of dogs wearing costumes. Row 9 is almost the same as row 8. There's only one difference, and that's down here at the bottom. Because in that previous row we did his little foot, so this is the space in between the feet. So this one is the only one that changed here at the bottom. So I'll share with you a picture that was sent to me on Facebook by Neve, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. And it's a picture of her brother's dogs named Pebble and Pixie. So I think they are so adorable, and I thank her for sending those to me. Push all of this down, and I'm going to add my next clear. In row 10, we're doing the second leg. I can tell here that my loom already is not wanting to stay flat because it's growing too long out the bottom. Next, I have a picture of Charlie, who is a little Yorkie, and he belongs to my daughter's best friend, Sarah. So he's really quite tiny, and I think he looks adorable in his little hot dog outfit. In row 11, we still have one little piece of the foot to do here when we get towards the bottom. So typically when I come up with a new alpha loom design, or something you can do on the Rainbow Loom, but that type of design that you can use a grid pattern for, what I do is go into Microsoft Excel and I come up with whatever character or project that I want to do. And then when I do my video on it, it's usually about 5 minutes long, and I show the grid pattern and tell you that you can just pause the video and follow along with the grid pattern. Because my thinking is, once you know how to make one bracelet, there's really no reason to make an hour-long tutorial showing each particular design, because all you need to do is just follow that grid pattern. So since this is my first bigger one that I'm not doubling the bands for, and it's more of this mural, I decided that I would show every single step. I'm not sure in the future if I would make a whole long, like 45-minute or hour-long tutorial for every mural, if I come up with future ones, or if I would just show the beginning and share the grid pattern and tell you to just follow along with that. So if anybody wants to leave their feedback as to what they prefer when they're doing this type of design, I would be appreciative to hear what everyone thinks. In row 12, we have blue at the top and bottom and just the middle section of the dog. And actually, in rows 12 through 15, it's going to be the same exact pattern every time. So I think what I'm going to do is to show the first row, and then I will just fast forward through the next 3 rows since they are the exact same. So that way it's just going to save a little bit of time, and then you can just pause your video to do those 3 rows. But I will show it in that fast forward motion just so you can see which rows we're working on, because I have that row highlighted. So once you've completed this row, you're about halfway done, since we have 25 rows in total. So if you're wondering how much longer you have to go, you're about halfway there. So I am going to fast forward here. Just make sure that you remember to do those tie bands in between every row. In row 16, this is our last row for the hot dog bun, and we are going to do the next leg of the dog. So I don't have any pets right now, but I used to have 2 dogs. I had 2 cockapoos, and one was with us for 15 years and the other one for 18 years. So we just lost the second cockapoo last year, actually on my birthday, so it was a very sad time and I still miss him every day. So I will share with you their pictures. The first one is Gomez, and he was our little naughty boy. He was very dominant and he wasn't the most friendly. And then he lived till he was 15. So here he is dressed in his little devil's costume, which was pretty fitting for him, but we still loved him very much. In row 17, you're going to start with your ear color. So I have this nice dark brown. I actually had made it with a lighter brown when I was first creating this, and I decided to change it because it just wasn't enough contrast between the main dog color. So I would say the darker brown that you have, the better. And then here's a picture of our second cockapoo, and his name was Toby. So here he is dressed as a little pumpkin head, and obviously he's the one that lived till he was 18. So he was very sweet and very gentle, and he really became like my third child, because towards the end of his life he was blind, pretty much deaf, and he was wearing diapers. He didn't get around very well. So he was kind of in constant need of attention, so he monopolized all my time. But I didn't mind because he was just such a sweet dog. Row 18 is still working on that ear. So here's a picture of my cousin's dog, Duke, and even though he's not exactly wearing a costume, he has his plastic cone of shame on, so you can see he looks quite sad, but I thought I'd share it because I thought it was such a cute picture. So he's really this giant beast of a dog. He's huge, but he's definitely a gentle giant. Row 19 is the last row for our ear color, and we are going to do that last leg as well. Next, I'll show you a picture that Tan Fra had shared with me. It's a picture of her daughter's puppy wearing a harness made out of Rainbow Loom bands. So I think Tan is very talented. She shares a lot of her creations with me on my Facebook page, and I thank her for doing that. In row 20, we have the eye. So you're going to use black for the first time. It's going to be on this third pin down. The next dog picture is of little Coco. So this was shared by Tong on Facebook, and I think she just looks like this sweetest little princess in her pink fuzzy bed. In row 21, we have just 3 of your dog color. We're going to just narrow this down for his little snout. Next we have a picture of Beckham, and this was shared by Brian. And true to his name, he loves to play soccer. You can see him here with his soccer ball. In row 22, we have just 2 of our doggy bands. Again, we're just narrowing down that little snout. And here's another picture of Beckham. You can see he's sound asleep with his little stuffed animal. So I guess he must have gotten himself all tired out from playing soccer all day. In row 23, we have mostly background color. There's just black for his little nose, and that goes on the 5th pin down. Next we have Max, who was shared by Sally, and I think that he's really cute. He looks very similar to Milo, so I assume that he's a long-haired dachshund. So he's super cute. Row 24 and also 25 are just going to be your solid background color. So we're really at the home stretch here. The next picture was shared by Stephanie, and it's a sweet little girl dachshund named Kelly. So I think she's a beautiful color, and she looks like another long-haired dachshund. And here's our final set of the clear bands. And row 25 is our very last row. I have another picture of my dog Toby. So he has a little bow in his hair that says tricks for treats. So even though he's a boy, I had gotten them these little t-shirt material sweaters and it said tricks for treats, and then it also came with a bow. And then there was another one that Gomez wore that said too cute for a costume, and that had a bow that came with it as well. But I don't have any pictures of Gomez wearing it. I'm assuming he probably wouldn't let me put it in his hair. Now to finish this off, what I'm going to do is take all of the bands that are on the pins closest to me, and I'm going to move them to the back pins. So just very carefully take them off, make sure you don't lose them, and get both of those loops to go on the ones that are straight across. You can see that I actually did just lose one, even though I just said to be careful. You want to make sure that they're pushed all the way down on the pins too. And then what I'm going to do is take the bottom two, pull them over the top, again, I'm going to push all of this down to the bottom of the pins, and then I'm going to start here on the right, taking these bottom two, moving them to the pin, next one over to the left, and then what you're going to do is put your hook down inside, push back on the top two, grab the bottom two, they need to come up through, and then they're going to move over to the left. So we're going to do that every time here. So push back just on the top two, and those bottom two come up through and move over. I'm going to do that the whole way up here. Again, just take your time. Try to be careful and not lose any of these bands off of your hook. And then here's my last one. These are going to be my only loose bands. Make sure they stay on your hook. And then you can just carefully get the rest of these to come off. And then here is your little hot dog. So you need to just take a minute and stretch this all out. You want to get it nice and even. If you notice in the middle where we had those tie bands overlap, if it looks a little bit crooked, you can even that out. And for this row here at the end, again, you want to just smooth this out. So the very final thing we have to do is to tie off these two bands at the end. So what I'm going to do is flip to the back side, and I'm going to just go through one or two bands here. I'm going to take one additional band, and I'm going to pull it through everything, and then one through the other, make a really nice and tight slip knot. And then all we have to do is to hide this loop. So I'm just going to go up through here and then just pull this down through the middle. I feel like I'm hung up here. There we go. And I can still see the loop a little bit, so I'm going to go down through a couple more. And then it's fairly well hidden there. And then here's your sweet little doggy mural. So here's my two little murals side by side. I think they are both really super adorable, and I hope that all of you feel the same way. You can always leave me comments on YouTube and Facebook, post pictures of your creations to my Facebook page, and please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on all of my latest tutorials. You can also find me on Pinterest and Instagram, so please feel free to subscribe to those as well and post pictures and comments there too. Thanks for watching!